Hey, True Believers, Englentine here. Now, you may have heard that the world has come to an end because J.J.Abrams and his son were hired to write a Spider-Man comic book. And everybody went crazy. And oh my gosh, nepotism. It sucks. Okay, so I figured why don't we give this an unbiased review. I also have a review for Inferior Five and Archie 1955 here, so we're going to check those out as well. And without further ado, let's get this party started. Oh, whoops. Not quite yet. I forgot to say, after Spider-Man, I do review the Inferior 5 comic book as well as Archie 1955. So stay tuned for those as well. Now, usually on just a regular review, I don't do the whole cover thing, but I'm going to do the cover thing here because, in all honesty, it sucks. Mainly because look at Mary Jane. It's like they drew this awesome picture of Spider-Man and went, oh yeah, Mary Jane's in this. Oh my gosh, we got to add her into it. It completely seems like she's an afterthought on this. And it's the absolute worst pose they could possibly put her in. I've got to call this cover a fail. But how is the book itself? Okay, so it starts off with Mary Jane trying to get Peter out of a certain area. He just defeated a villain, and she's like, his mask is all torn, everything's not looking good. I mean, lots of just pure destruction, and Spider-Man right in the middle of it, and even Mary Jane alludes to something like the rules of change. So this is either the future or it's an alternative universe with Spider-Man. That hasn't exactly been established yet. And this part right here is really just, I don't know, it's set up, but it's not really setting anything up. I mean, this is the opening gambit. This is the first action scene in a James Bond movie before we get the credits and it goes on. And I've noticed a lot of comic books do that these days. But it's really just to set up the relationship between Mary Jane and Spider-Man. They are together. They've got a kid, the whole 9 yards. And, of course, they're talking, and the bad guy that he thought he'd beaten, and Spider-Man's pretty broken up. You can see his broken arm the whole 9 yards. The big baddie steps up, sends some minions after him, and ends up just taking Peter Parker out. But not only does he defeat Peter Parker, but when he's down, the bad guy actually ends up killing Mary Jane as well. And from here, this is where things go wrong. I mean, okay, first of all, the opening scene is actually kind of dramatic. It's not bad. It sets up the characters' relationships. It sets up at least that much. It even tries to do a little bit of world building. I think it fails in that we don't know, is this an alternate universe, so forth and so on, unless you read an article or something. Then we see Ben Parker. He's a kid, and we realize, okay, this isn't going to be about Peter Parker. This isn't going to be about Spider-Man. It's going to be about Ben Parker, especially when they pop up with this 12 years later thing. And here's where it all goes to pot. We see Ben Parker, and he's trying to help people. He's trying to do good. He ends up getting called into the principal's office for fighting. You see some sort of the jocks picking on the nerds. And the guy's like, hey, man, you've been in here for four times, and it's this week, and it's only Thursday. And, okay, fine. The kid's a bit of a rebel. He starts fights. He likes to help people. He's got a little bit of the Peter Parker gene in there. Only Peter Parker's not doing that anymore. Yeah, I'm not kidding. We find out that oh, by the way, yeah, spoilers if you haven't figured it out yet. I'll mark it at the very beginning as well. Anywho, Peter Parker's not doing this. He's out of the game. He lost a hand. He's not doing the superhero thing, but not only that, he's turned his back on Aunt May. He's turned his back on his son. He's got a job where he's always moving around, but ultimately he's completely dropped any semblance of with great power comes great responsibility. And that, I think, is one of the biggest problems. We saw it in The Dark Knight Rises. Remember the movie where because Rachel Dawes died, he stopped being Batman? And it's like, wait a second. His parents get killed and he becomes Batman. His girlfriend dies, he stops? Uncle Ben dies, so this drives Peter Parker to want to be Spider-Man. So now he's like, I don't want to be Spider-Man no more. because Mary Jane. No! No! I'm sorry. I understand you want to push Ben Parker, and that's fine, but that's not the way to go through it. You're not getting the character of Spider-Man if you think because Mary Jane died, he would quit. He would double down. If anything, he would stop paying attention to his son because he has to be Spider-Man all of the time now to stop having other people die. And I think that's one thing that they just missed and they messed up about the character. So, I don't know. If you cannot grasp the character, you're just writing a story starring someone and you're calling it Spider-Man instead of actually writing a Spider-Man story. And that's why, in the end, if I've got to answer the question, is Spider-Man by J.J. Abrams really that bad? I'm going to have to say yes. I wanted it to be good. I thought maybe there was a hint of something in the beginning, but overall, at least the art was good. I did like the art, but the story, that's a fail, man. Next up, we have the Inferior Five, and I might as well talk about the cover here. It sucks. It really does. I mean, look at it. You have no idea who the Inferior Five is. I know that because I barely know who the Inferior Five is, and I've read all of their Silver Age issues. There's not enough people out there who know the Inferior Five is, and this cover tells us nothing about it. Even a superhero poster pose would be better than this. And it's Keith Giffen. I like Keith Giffen's art. I really do. I'm a fan. Anyway, let's continue. Actually, it's not going to get much better than that, to tell you the truth, as far as my attitude towards this book. The comic book starts off as a comic within a comic. And it sets up a decent story, and we realize that, okay, they're writing a comic book about real events, so what we saw in the comic book actually happened, but it's a comic book, and they're not telling us, hey, these are real events. We get that in the dialogue, actually. Why would they even write a story about that really happened, and people are really depressed, and they just want escapism? And we've heard that before in real life, so I don't know if that's kind of poking a stick at the critics or something like that. I don't know. Gosh, I love Keith Giffen's art. I really do. I'm a huge fan of his Legion of Superheroes. I'm a huge fan of his run on the Justice League, and I recommend it to anybody. Here, like I said, they needed to open up a little bit more. They want to world build, and it's Jeff Lemire, and I like his writing even. But they forgot to let us know who these characters are. It's just a bunch of people whining and yelling at each other. We do find out one guy bleeds from his mouth for some reason, but that's never followed up with, not now. Now, granted, this is issue number 1 of a 12-issue miniseries, and I'm willing to follow through on a few issues more. I'm going to give Keith Giffen, that at least that much respect. But overall, I think they dropped the ball on this one. I really do. The world is not that interesting. And because there's no time spent getting to know who these people are, I'm afraid that the characters aren't all that interesting either. And that's a big loss. I'm kind of surprised. I really am, considering what I've gotten from Keith Giffen and Jeff Lemire in the past. I'm really surprised at how bad I thought this book was. There is, however, a Peacemaker story at the end, which, 4 pages, we get to know who the Peacemaker is and why Amanda Waller is sending him on a mission. And she's arguing with Rick Flag. She's talking about, well, he's the right man for the job, and she tells him why. We get an idea of who he is. We get an idea of why she's sending him on this particular mission. There's enough story in the 4 pages that are written here that we get to know him, and we're on the mission with him, and it works. And I like the Peacemaker a lot better than I did the Inferior Five, to tell you the truth. That's kind of sad. I like the cover. Yeah, it's a little cinematic. I like the Archie 1955. He's got his name in lights. It actually sort of fits what's going on the inside. Gotta say, good job there. It's a decent cover. It is. Okay, well, let's actually talk about what's in the book. But because every time I do a review of an Archie product, I get copyright claimed from Archie Comics, I can't show you anything that's in the book. The art is modern-day Archie. This is written by Mark Waid and Brian Augustine. Archie 1945, by the way, was 44, I believe it was brilliant. It was an absolute wonderful book. One of the best of 2018, hands down. It also spilled into 2019 and got a nomination for a Spirit Award for that this year as well. So I'm very much looking forward to this, and I open it up, and of course, Richie, I don't know why I called him that, Richie Cunningham is, Archie is playing in a band with Reg and Jughead, and they're at a school dance, and Weatherby doesn't want them to do rock and roll, of course, so they're like really kind of slow about it, and then they decide to rock out, and that's when somebody notices them and says, wow, you actually got a nice modern day hip sound. And it's basically, the whole book is about Archie deciding he wants to be a rock star. He goes out with a black friend to a black club to hear black music, and he hits. That's the story. That's what's going on in this book. It's well written. It's not as emotionally impactful as the last series, but it's still entertaining and it's still enjoyable, I have to say. However, there's no real tension. They try to create some last minute at the end when you see Reg and Jughead saying, well, Archie was supposed to show up for a rehearsal. What happened to him? He's not here. And then it shows Archie on his bed writing his own songs rather than, hanging out with his friends and doing the rehearsal like they said. Overall, I liked it. I like the book. I'm an Archie fan, though. Take that how you will. But I'm willing to look at a book and go, yeah, that's not good. This one, however, absolutely entertaining, and I do recommend it. If you haven't visited Archie for a while, I would say go read Archie 1945. 1955 is good, but that one's better. But if you're not inclined to do that, yeah, this one will hold you, I think. Yeah, overall, well, obviously it's the best of the 3 issues I'm reviewing here. So I would recommend getting this one. Anyway, gang, there you go. Those are 3 comic book reviews. Marvel, a DC, an independent comic. I can't recommend Spider-Man. I just don't think they got the character right. Now, this is issue number 1 of a miniseries, and hopefully they'll change that. It'll get better as it goes. I don't know. Archie was the big win, and then, of course, Inferior Five is another loss. So 1 out of 3. Yikes. Anyway, did you read these books? If so, what did you think? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to click like and share, because YouTube is not sharing my channels, or they're sharing them to like the barbecue channel or the engine channel or anybody who doesn't actually pay attention to comic books. So if you could just share this channel out, get word out about it, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done it already, and hit that notification bell, because that's all that YouTube really cares about when they care at all. And if you don't mind helping out the channel, go on over to Patreon or to Ko-Fi, links in the description below. And you can even commission your own video. Just pick any topic, pick any subject, and we'll get that video out to you as soon as possible. Well, posting it on YouTube is what I really mean. Anyway, I'd like to thank everybody who's already done that, and to everyone, all of the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching.